If you're someone who has your Mars in your 6th house in your chart, I'm willing to take a bet that you're someone who has to make everything they do either into a habit or put it into your schedule in order to remember to do it or even have the energy to do it in the first place. If that feels true, watch this video where I'm going to break down everything you need to know about having your Mars in the 6th house, because our Mars is our physical energy and vitality, but also our talents. And so understanding the house that your Mars is in tells you where your talents can best be embraced and where this energy demands to be channeled. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Isabelle, and today I want to talk about what it means to have your Mars in the 6th house in your chart. In this video, I'm going to break down what Mars is, what the houses are, and how they differ from the zodiac signs, as well as what the 6th house is, what it means to have your Mars in the 6th house, what it means to have Mars in 6th house briefly through all the zodiac signs, and potential good career paths for Mars in 6th house. For this video, I will eventually break away for a bit and bring back an old video where I talked about Mars and the houses, and then we will come back to the present to talk about what Mars in 6th house means, as well as specific 6th house placements. This is one I'm very familiar with because I personally have my Mars in the 6th house, and let me tell you, learning what this meant drastically changed how I approach my life and my career, and I've gotten exponentially more successful both in just my personal life and career life ever since I've started understanding what it means to have my Mars in 6th house and started applying it. So before we dive in to Mars and the 6th house and all that good information, make sure you hit the link in the description below to book your one-on-one reading with me, where in 1 hour we can dive deep into any and everything about your chart and your unique personality type combination. In these readings, I don't just cover astrology, we also can go into Enneagram, numerology, MBTI, and more. It's a complete personality reading. If you want to understand yourself more, or if you're looking to find a better career path, know what transits are happening that are what they're inviting you to do, if any of that interests you, book a reading in the link in the description below, and you can also find out more information on kinds of readings you can book in that same link in the description. So I'm going to break away for a bit, bring back an old video so then you can learn more about Mars and the houses, and then we'll be back to talk more about what it means to have specifically the Mars in 6th house and what the 6th house is. I love talking about Mars because in our modern day society, Mars is a very dominant energy, I think, that a lot of us tend to embrace, in the sense that Mars is our planet of action. It shows us how we like to take action. And a lot of us are taught that we are human doings, not human beings. And so Mars energy is something that can be over-domineering, or on the other hand, it is an energy that we don't learn how to properly embrace, in the sense that we're all supposed to live 9-to-5 jobs, clock in, clock out, and some people's Mars placement serves them well with that. But for other people, this can be very detrimental, such as for the Mars in 5th house. So Mars is the planet of action. In the end, it represents our masculine energy or yang energy, taking action, doing, putting our nose to the grindstone, simply. And so whatever sign your Mars is in is going to tell you how you like to take action, how you can best take action. Mars is also not just our action, how we like to move through life, but it's also our physical vitality, what gives us a sense of physical vitality. So it's very similar in many ways to how the sun sign sounds. The sun sign gives us vitality, but this is also more on the emphasis on as we move, as we physically engage with the world, as we take action, the way in which we do so will give us more physical energy and physical strength. It is also our natural talents. So not only is Mars our physical energy and strength and how we like to move through life, but it's also some of our most natural talents that we can embrace. And of course, that applies to our career naturally. So if you're interested in learning how to use Mars for your career, I'll cover that at the end of this video. But your Mars sign and house will tell you what your career strengths and talents are, how you should act, and what kind of field you should be in, the house being the field you should be in. Now, what are the houses in astrology? Oftentimes I notice that, and this happened for me too, when we're learning about astrology, the difference between a sign and a house, the line gets really blurry between the two, especially because most astrologers will want to, including me, give you all the information and say, you know, how Taurus is the 2nd house, and so the 2nd house is Taurus, and Scorpio is the 8th house. They're all associated, so that makes you go, okay, well,
Does that mean I have then a bit of that energy in me, that zodiac energy? If I have 5th house energy and that's associated with Leo, even if my Mars is in maybe Virgo, do I have a Leo energy too? It gets really confusing. And so I want to clarify. The sign that your Mars is in is the energy. In general, for any placement, the sign is the vibe, I like to call it. And the house is where in your physical life this shows up. We have 12 areas of life under the astrology philosophy, the 12 main areas of our life, from self-identity to our unconscious to our one-on-one relationships to our family to our career. They're segregated areas of our life. And so whenever we have a planet in a certain house, it puts an emphasis on that area of life and tells us how we can best fulfill that area of life. For example, your needs with your parents or your children is going to be different than what your need is of your boss or your needs of your community or your needs of your romantic partner. And that's because we have separate houses.
So now that you have that overview of Mars and the houses and how they differ from the signs, let's talk a bit about the 6th house, and then we'll get into Mars in the 6th house. The 6th house reflects themes of Virgo. It's almost as if Virgo was a person and they were told to build a house based off of what they value. And so Virgo, being practical, detail-oriented, analytical, very selfless, and very service-oriented, they built the house of routines, schedules, and well-being. When we're talking about the 6th house, stereotypically, a lot of themes around health will come up. And that is because in the end, the 6th house revolves around the things we do in our day-to-day lives, the schedules we implement, the routines and habits we implement, and how that affects our reality, both our physical health and how we show up in a career, or more accurately, a service or a job. So the 6th house has a lot to do with our wellness. In the end, I say it encompasses what kind of schedule we need to have. So for example, whatever sign your 6th house cusp begins in is going to tell you what you want in your day-to-day life, what makes you feel healthy, and how you can best, serve in a way other people. The 6th house has to do with our routines. It has to do with our schedules. It has to do with our habits. People who have 6th house energy present in their chart, in the sense that they have a planet in the 6th house, tend to need schedules, routines, and habits more than other people. A great example of this is I have a 6th house Mars, which makes me super excited to film this video, as I mentioned, but also my dad has his moon in the 6th house. And let me tell you, as much as other family members and I need routines and stuff, my dad and I will combust if we don't turn things into habits. We will forget to do things if it's not an ingrained habit. So I'll cover more of that later, but general key takeaway is the 6th house is the house of health habits, routines, schedule, wellness. Okay, so now that you have that, what does it mean specifically to have your Mars, the planet of action, in the 6th house in your chart? If your Mars is in your 6th house in your chart, you're someone who likes to take action on a scheduled, habitual form, or working on a consistent schedule on day-to-day basis. Mars being the planet of action in the 6th house implies that the way you like to take action has to be scheduled and routine. Regardless of the sign it's in, or at least whatever sign your Mars is in, is going to tell you how you like to act. But with it being in the 6th house implies that you must be able to function on a 24-hour repeating schedule or a weekly repeating schedule. You need it to be habitual more than anything else. Mars and 6th house people do their best work when they form things into habits. And so regardless of the sign it's in, these are the people who probably have their morning rituals that they always do, their nightly rituals. They put everything into their calendar. And if it's not in their calendar, they're going to forget to do it. As I mentioned, I do this a lot. So the Mars in 6th house is driven by the desire to move on habit. And this affects their physical health, of course, because Mars is the planet of our physical vitality. So with a Mars in 6th house in your chart, what this really means too is not only do you, for your mental, emotional well-being, need habits and routines, and not only do you do your best work when you have habits and routines, but your physical vitality, your physical well-being is going to be drastically changed based off of what kind of habits you're implementing. And if you don't have consistent habits, if you don't have those routines, your physical health takes a huge drain. With Mars being in the 6th house, the 6th house being wellness, it also means that just generally your physical strength is going to be wrapped up in what you're doing with your well-being, your physical talents, your expression of them, your natural skill set is going to be easily tampered by your well-being. And I know this one in my example. I feel like the best way to explain it right now is an example is I need a lot of sleep. I need a consistent sleep schedule. I need to be falling asleep at 11, waking up at 8. If I mess with that, my brain is foggy. I can't do anything. I try to work through it. It does not work. I'm like a houseplant. I'm a glorified houseplant. I need very specific care. I need a perfect amount of sunlight, need the perfect amount of food and protein, need the perfect amount of sleep, or else I combust and I cannot do my best work. So in order for these people to embrace their natural talents, with Mars being our talents in the 6th house, you have to have good well-being. Making sure you're taking care of your physical health is going to be very important. And given that naturally the 6th house Mars placement is someone who generally can have more sensitive health. Even if you have a very strong, so to say, strong placement like Mars in Aries or Taurus, you would think that with a Mars in Taurus, maybe it would make you grounded, stable, persistent, but your health is going to take a toll on you easily. You have to regulate your health more. And same for Mars in Aries. Same for any zodiac sign placement of Mars. The Mars in 6th house implies that you need to put extra effort and energy into your health. And the best way for you to do that is to make things ingrained habits or routines. Now, if you're listening to this though, and you're going, I hate routines, I hate habits, I hate having to clock in and out and do my self-care routine and meditate and meal prep, it's possible that with the sign your Mars is in, your idea of habit could be different. So to put this in relative terms, let's say someone had a Mars in Aries in 6th house. Your idea of habits and schedules is going to be extremely different. So what this could mean is on a day-to-day basis, you need to be challenging yourself. You need to be impulsive on a day-to-day basis for your well-being. You need to have a scheduled, so to say, time slot, a habitual time slot where you get to embrace this Aries energy. If you're a Mars in Scorpio in 6th house, you're going to need scheduled time, a time slot where you get to be obsessive. And this could play out for you in a monthly scale. This could be obsessing over a project and having some form of habit for a few months at a time. There's different ways of forming habits. There's different ways of having schedules. The main takeaway with a Mars in 6th house and 6th house in general is it's our habitual way of being and our habitual well-being. And so regardless of the sign your Mars is in the 6th house, you need to feel like you're getting to be habitual in some sense and channeling your physical vitality on a day-to-day basis. With that, the Mars in 6th house placement is someone who needs to make sure that they're taking care of themselves physically in the sense of strengthening themselves on a day-to-day basis. Mars being our physical energy, our physical action, our strength, both our talents and our physical strength, means that with this placement, you need to feel like you're cultivating a strength in some form or fashion every day. I know for me, as a Mars in Gemini in 6th house, I need to feel like I'm learning and building my skill set, strengthening my skill set on a day-to-day basis. I need to be physically learning something or physically moving something. So based on the sign it could change how exactly you take on physical strengthening. But regardless, you need to feel like you're physically moving on a day-to-day basis. And last note on Mars just in 6th house, this is also the house technically of selfless service. This is the way I like to describe it because oftentimes it gets confused with the 10th house, which is of course the house of Capricorn, and 6th house being Virgos. It gets a little confusing because they're both earth signs. But the 10th house is the house of our career, our recognition, something like a business we're starting, our entrepreneurship. It is a purposeful career, so to say. Whereas the 6th house is our job. It is the more clock in, clock out, selfless service, fit into a cog role kind of thing. So it's the 6th house is our selflessness in many ways. And so when you have a Mars in 6th house, it's very likely that these people need to feel like they are selflessly serving in some form or fashion, offering a practical service. So to bring in the contrast to understand that a little more, because I do feel that this is a big key factor for the Mars in 6th house, especially in career, and it has been for myself, is understanding that you need to feel like you're providing something practical and getting to habitually offer a service on a day-to-day basis rather than building this idea of career where your task changes every day. These people need to feel like their work is routine. Let me tell you, I do not get filming done unless it is a habit. And I've only started filming again because it is so habitual for me right now to wake up, drink my coffee, do 1 hour to 30 minutes of computer work, open my phone, lift this dang blind, and film. It's very possible that when my habits around me are going to change, when I change where I'm living, when I change what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, I will stop filming because it's not habitual enough. So for the Mars in 6th house, your form of work needs to be something that you feel like you get to clock in, clock out every day, where you know exactly what's expected of you and you have a practical task you're doing every day. So now let's talk really quickly about what it would mean maybe specifically to have your Mars in 6th house in each zodiac sign. It would take a long time to go through all 12, so we're going to generalize this by element. So if you are a Mars in 6th house in an earth sign, such as Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, this really puts the emphasis on having habitual routines for your wellness. You need to have your self-care routine, maybe your face mask, your meal prep. Your physical environment and your physical body are going to be playing a huge factor on your physical vitality more than others. You need to feel like you have practical sense of security and physical things to rely on. This also means that in your career, you need to feel more grounded and stable. Whereas if your Mars is in a fire sign in the 6th house, so if you're an Aries, Sagittarius, or Leo Mars, then you're going to be someone who needs to be fueled by passion on your day-to-day basis. You want to be driven by impulse, by courage, by confidence. Whatever your theme is, so to say, with your Mars sign placement, you need to do that on a clock in, clock out day-to-day basis. So for Mars in a fire sign, you need to be passionate and playful on a day-to-day basis. You need to have time scheduled out for novelty, to try something new. You need to book that skydiving trip for the weekend and plan the next vacation. You need to have everything ingrained into your schedule. If you're a Mars in 6th house and in a water sign, such as Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, you're going to need to have emotional freedom in your day-to-day basis. You need to feel like you get to act on your emotions in a day-to-day basis and maybe even connect with people emotionally on a day-to-day or weekly basis. For a Mars in water sign in 6th house, their emotional well-being and their physical well-being go very hand in hand. Based on how much you're channeling your emotions and feeling them is going to change how physically healthy you are, and vice versa. If you're not taking care of your physical health well and giving yourself those practical habits and routines, your emotions are going to take a huge downfall. So I very much recommend to these people with a Mars and water sign 6th house placement that they learn about their moon sign as well and keep that also noted. If your Mars and moon are conjunct in your 6th house, how are you doing? Are you okay? If your Mars is in the 6th house and in an air sign, such as Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius, then you're going to need learning, connection, and mental stimulus on a day-to-day basis. And even saying that right now, that is a sentence I've never used before to describe this, and I now realize why I have mood swings. You need to feel like you're being stimulated highly on a day-to-day basis, and so you need to have something that you're learning or socializing with on a day-to-day or scheduled basis. You need to know that you have that reliability of networking, of interaction, or of stimulus of some kind. Your mental energy and your physical energy go hand in hand here, of course. So if your mental energy isn't doing well, if you're anxious and stressed, your physical body is going to tell you that. If, on the other hand, maybe your physical body is drained and you haven't been fueling it, your mental energy is going to show that. You're going to feel brain fog. You're not going to feel like you're moving a boulder uphill. So now that we have that general overview, hopefully that gives a pretty good overview of Mars in the 6th house in each. I want to let you comment below. Words aren't working. Comment below what your Mars sign 6th house placement is and give me your interpretation on that. And if you have more questions, of course, you can book a reading. But let's talk about career paths really quick for a Mars in 6th house to wrap up this video. Given that Mars is in the 6th house of routines, there is a pretty broad spectrum in which the Mars in 6th house could do for careers. In the end, it's very important that these people are doing something where the same thing is expected of them every day that they clock in. And having a consistent schedule such as Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 is probably the most beneficial career type to have. If you have an inconsistent schedule where you never know what days you're working or if you are sometimes called in, sometimes not, this could be a bit stressful for you. But in the end, on Mars in 6th house, the career paths that are going to serve them best are going to have to do with service. These people do well in the service or wellness industry. So for example, this could be being a literal server or in customer service potentially, but this could also be in fields such as the military or an EMT. I know that I considered at a very young age, being a firefighter, and it was that idea of being of service and knowing exactly what was expected of me and being in that high stimulus environment as a Mars in Gemini. But regardless, a Mars in 6th house is going to want or could do well in a service-based industry. And that could also be in some examples such as healthcare or hospital work as well. Not only could a service-based job be really good for a Mars in 6th house, but also wellness-based, because the 6th house is the house of well-being. And based on whatever sign your Mars is in, is going to tell you what has helped you the most with your wellness. And so that could be something you offer back to the world. So with a Mars in 6th house, this could mean being a wellness coach, a health coach, a personal trainer, doing something related to physical well-being, providing a service for other people's well-being, and helping them with their well-being could be beneficial. Hence why we also have the interpretation of being in healthcare, because you want to help people take care of their physical well-being. And again, the sign it's in is going to tell you exactly how to embrace this skill set. So there's a lot that you can do here. Service-based routine jobs are going to be the best for a Mars in 6th house. If not, I think necessary. You need to feel like your job is habitual and that you know exactly what is expected of you, which is oftentimes in service-based jobs more clear, whereas entrepreneurial paths could be very stressful for these people, not knowing exactly what they need to do to get the job done or how much they're going to make. Speaking from experience here. So a service-based job or a health-based job could be very beneficial for these people. In the end, it should be focused on routines. So hopefully that gives you guys a good overview into what it means to have your Mars in the 6th house. Let me know in the comments below, did this resonate for you? And what do you do for work right now? What do you do for a job? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you enjoy it? Do you not like it? Is it stressful? What other interpretations did I miss on the Mars in 6th house? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're someone who goes, I still can't interpret for myself and I don't know what it means to have an overlapping Mars in 6th house in a certain sign, 2 options for you. 1, you can check out my astrology course, the Master Astrologer, in the link in the description below, where I teach you everything I've learned about astrology in a clear, cohesive fashion. If you want to become your own astrologer, the Master Astrologer course does just that. So you can check it out in the link in the description below, and you can get half off by commenting the words in all caps, Master Astrologer, in the comments below, and I will send you information on how you can get 50% off. Option 2, if you want to learn more about your specific Mars sign house combination placement, as well as maybe even more of your career astrology, then book a reading in the link in the description below, where we can dive deep into your career, your Mars, every and anything about your chart. So check it out in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Sincerely hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube channel and stay tuned for more videos, and let me know in the comments below what you want to hear about next about astrology, personology, and more. Once again, my name's Isabelle. From my heart to yours, namaste.